Welcome back to Kin in Line. I make this part 98. Finally, we're in London. I was seconded to the London office of the South African Morning Group in early 1990. So I spent 2 years there as a foreign correspondent, covering South African news from in the UK and Europe for the main morning newspapers in South Africa. So we got a flat in Acton, West London, and our local pub was the King's Arms. I think there was the Six Bells nearby and a couple of others. But this was our first sort of pub evening, and my wife and I couldn't resist doing a few sketches, of course. Bottle of beer with a glass there and some of the characters in the pub. This is on quite thin paper, so I'm going to have to use a page underneath just to stop it shining through. So, you know, unmistakably British, that flat cap and all these characters. It was a bit of a burden trying to turn pages with one hand. So these, look, quick sketches, just capturing the character. I think I've actually got another page here. This guy at the top reminded me a lot of Spike Milligan. Milligan, I think, has Irish ancestry, and a lot of those communities in West London have big Irish populations. So it's quite possible this guy was Irish. Then on another occasion I went to the London Museum. I just took myself off there. That's one of the beauties of living there. So on a weekend I went there and I looked around, and then I saw these actual art students sitting around sketching. So I sketched them sketching. That seems to be that little batch. Sorry, this is just drawings all over the show, so I want to try again now to put some paper underneath some of these pages so we can get a better look. So early on in 1990, as I said, I took myself off into town. It's quite a long tube ride, about half an hour, but into the city, and here's Westminster, drawn in bitterly cold weather. I mean, it couldn't have been much above freezing. So my hand was literally shaking as I just stood on a bridge and tried to capture something of this historic building, of the little boat cruising down the Thames there. Big Ben looking somewhat out of kilter, but it never complained. So walking along the embankment on the Thames, I sort of looked down onto, this might have been from that bridge as well, and there was this sort of some sort of boat moored up against the side, and some guy cleaning the top, I think. And then these things are going to be all a little bit jumbled up, but we went to the London Zoo in Regent's Park, I think it is. And lo and behold, some African giraffe, which I didn't hesitate to sketch. It was a little part of home, you know. It did look a little out of place in that little confined space, but yeah, the big drawback of zoos is they are so artificial, and caging animals or caging birds but you do get to see animals you would never see otherwise, and so this is probably the first live camel that I'd seen. 2 humps or one hump or two. And you don't normally see many llamas in South Africa, so I think this was a llama, which always reminds me of the Monty Python sketch. But the llama is on a quadrupedal. It's John Cleese at his best. And yeah, if you're going to look for exotic animals, what about the bison? Big bugger. For some reason, the Americans call these buffaloes, they look nothing like actual African buffalo. So why confuse the matter? I'm not sure now what the heck this is. Probably the bison from a different angle. Do they have horns? Anyway, we got back to Africa pretty quickly because one of our most stately, statuesque looking antelope is the kudu, which I'm pretty sure this is, with those curled horns. And so anyway, let's just get him down. Quite a nice full drawing of one. Now, a sighting like this in the bush isn't very common because they're such elusive animals, really. If you're trying to if you're out in the bush, they will be behind trees very quickly. So I don't know, we seem to have, oh yes, we are still in the UK, I think. So definitely spotted some cattle somewhere, as I tend to do. Captured them. Then we went to visit, we went down to Wales, and I can't remember the name of this, Tintern Abbey. That's right, I think there's a poem, Lines on Tintern Abbey. And I've actually been on the internet and found a copy of this, a photograph of this exact view.